Hi, I'm Rick Maurer, and welcome to this Change Without Migraine series. I was in a meeting last week, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, I've got Zoom fatigue," and some other people, "Oh yeah," and I was in another meeting, said, "Hey, I can only be here for a couple of minutes. I'm just so tired. I had Zoom meetings all day." And people went, "Oh yeah." I want to tell you, Zoom is not the problem. Zoom is a tool, and it's a highly sophisticated tool. It's much better than what we had, even 3, 4 years ago. The problem is we're using it way too much. Some of you may remember the early days of PowerPoint. Whoa, you're old, Rick. Yeah, yeah. With stone tablets, it was really something. And people got wind of it. And I remember seeing a client using it. And oh, that is really something. And then suddenly meetings are filled with PowerPoint slides. It's a good tool, but suddenly it was used for everything. Oh, well, we need to think that through. Let's do it on PowerPoint. All right. So I think we can use Zoom better. And so I want to tell you a story. Right? About 8 years ago, I decided to take an online course on jazz improvisation through the Berklee School of Music. And it was being taught by Gary Burton, a grandmaster musician, plays vibes. And not only was he a grandmaster musician, he was a great teacher as well. And Berklee knows a lot about online learning. Okay? So there's some things that they did during that course that I think we could use, not just in training sessions, but any meeting where you really are trying to accomplish something, like move the bar from here to here. If it's just a meeting where you're just all reporting in what's going on out in the region, and you just do that and people can be asleep, then that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about getting meetings that actually get something done, training sessions that actually, get people more engaged. Like, oh, I ought to work on that. So here's what they did. Every lesson was about 30 minutes, so really short. And every lesson, the way I remember it at any rate, was on one topic. And that topic was highly focused. It could be deep, but highly focused, very specific. And I remember Gary would get up and sometimes he would have his vibes there and he'd say, "Here's what I'm talking about." And he would demonstrate it. Or he'd say, "If you need other examples, here's a recording. Just click here of Sonny Rollins doing that, or click here for a recording of Miles Davis doing that." So the ability to actually experience what he's talking about was right there in front of you. And then he would lecture some, he would discuss some, he would respond to our questions. But this was like, as I remember it, about 30 minutes. And then, as part of that, would be an assignment. And he'd say, "All right, so this week we worked on the Lydian dominant scale, huh? How about that?" And he said, and I don't think he actually did that one, but at any rate, he said, "All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to improvise a chorus over a blues using that scale, blah, 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 blah." And I mean, jazz musicians are getting horrified at this point, but, let them. And he'd say, "All right, so here's what I want you to do." And he might even give a little demonstration of that. And he said, "I have a couple of backup tracks recorded. And my mother-in-law refers to those as karaoke for jazz musicians." Well, in this instance, the karaoke was pretty high quality because it was Gary Burton doing it. So you'd pick the backup that you wanted to do. You'd pick up your phone, you'd record yourself, and when you got satisfied, you'd send it to him. And you had to send it by Sunday morning, and then his promise was to get back to you really quickly. I remember one Sunday morning, I sent my assignments in, and within an hour, I had an email back from Gary. And it wasn't a "dear participant" or a "dear," and then a different typeface, "Rick" kind of thing. He was saying, "Hey, there's a difference in your playing from last week. Here's what I noticed. And here's some things I would really urge you to keep on doing because I think it's working for you, and some stuff that isn't so good." So suddenly, there's instant feedback from somebody who I really admire. And I'm going, whoa. And as the course went on, I noticed that I was actually improving as a player. And I didn't expect that. I expected kind of a fire hose of techniques, which I've gotten in other courses on jazz and music harmony and all of that. It's like, okay, over the course of your lifetime, if you live that long, bam, here's what we're going to do. But here would be like one thing at a time, and it kept building and building. All right. So here's what you could be doing. If you're doing a training session, you don't have to have people together for 3 hours or 6 hours. You could bring them together for 30 minutes. You could bring them together for 15 minutes. There's an online thing called Masterclass, and some of their lessons are like 5, 6 minutes long. Okay, So you pick something. And people don't have to go across town or get on a plane to come to your thing. So you can really have a 10-minute lesson. You could have a 30-minute lesson. But too often we want to pack it. Well, we got their attention. Let's keep going. I would say don't do that. You really are going to get fatigue if you do that. But if they know that they're coming to a lesson and this is the one thing they're going to focus on, there's a call to action, there's going to be feedback, and then next week we're going to move to this next thing, or tomorrow we're going to move to the next thing. That's a very different experience. The same thing is if you're holding a meeting or you want to accomplish something like move the project forward by 2 inches. And rather than trying to cover everything that needs to get done, say, what we really need to do is we need to make a decision about this one point. Are we going to go this way? Are we going to go that way? Or maybe there's a completely different way. So let's spend some time brainstorming. And so people can get into the chat room. They can do all kinds of things. Hey, let's break up into some smaller groups to talk about that for just a couple of minutes. But it moves. And say, all right, here's what I'd like. We had a lot of information. I would like you to go on the website or the chat room, and I'd like you to say, here's the direction I think we should go, and give your argument for that. Or here's what I'm concerned about. And when we get together on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I want us to be able to make a decision. Bam. Really short, really crisp, and really focus on some outcome. So I think Zoom is a great tool. I think its competitors are, seem to be, really catching up and doing a nice job too. The problem isn't Zoom fatigue, it's us overusing a really decent tool. At any rate, hope that's helpful. Thanks a lot.